Hello. In this lecture, we will see how to configure the MoSMB server for ntlmLocal authentication mode. In online documentation, we can go to the ntlmLocal authentication mode page and we can verify our configuration side by side on our servers. Previously, we had installed the MoSMB Standalone build on CentOS and Ubuntu. Now we will check the MoSMB SA configuration for ntlm authentication mode. Now, ntlm authentication mode works same for CentOS as well as Ubuntu or any other distribution. It will not need any special packages other than the MoSMB dependency packages which we had already installed. Now, if we can check on server side, we already have a MoSMB package installed. You can check the version and the package name with the MoSMB-v command, and it says it's MoSMB 311 package. And with -b command we can see the complete details of a package. So standalone packages come with the in-memory vinode mechanism. Once the MoSMB is installed, all the packages we have configured, all the files we have configured go in etc MoSMB directory. So we can just list the content of etc MoSMB directory, and we will see that we have MoSMB JSON file, which is MoSMB configuration file. We have license directory, which is used to configure the MoSMB licenses. This is a readme file which has the content of all the configuration parameter and its information. Then we have a scripts directory in which there are various scripts which we can use for performance tuning or stats collection and otherwise. And then we have a third-party licenses folder in which we have information for all the third-party licenses which MoSMB uses. So we'll first go through the MoSMB JSON file. Now by default, all MoSMB SA builds are configured to work in the ntlmLocal authentication. We'll just open the MoSMB JSON file located at etc MoSMB JSON. As we can see, current version of MoSMB JSON file is 1.5.0, and its help for all the parameters are located at etc MoSMB readme.md file. We have MAX protocol as SMB 3.0 currently supported. Now for ntlm local configuration, main configuration which we need to focus on are as follows: that we need to make sure that enable high availability parameter is set to no, enable S3 parameter is set to no, and we have mentioned authentication mode in auth section as ntlmLocal. We can give any node ID as per our requirement in this section. Then our mechanism for the standalone build is inode. So vinode mechanism should be mentioned as inode. Then we have to configure our share properties. In share properties, we have to give the share name. So default share name is share1 and its share path is opt share. Now before starting MoSMB, we need to make sure this opt share path exists on the server machine. Then the is cluster parameter must be set to no for ntlmLocal authentication and standalone build. Then currently we have set the share encryption to no. Case sensitivity is currently set to yes. And then ACL strategy we are selecting here is Posix Acl, and as per our file systems allows, we can check POSIX permission bits or we can disable the check of POSIX permission bit. The UB strategy is that user-based enumeration for the shares. So for share 1 we have set it to no, and for similarly we have configured share 2, and share 2's share path is OPT accounts. We also need to make sure that this path is present on the server machine. Now for share 2 we have enabled the user-based enumeration settings. Now for this we need to give UB users and UB groups. Either of these need to be mentioned, and we can mention it as either the uh, only the user groups or user and its domain. This user and domain or group and domain are required for the Kerberos authentication. So for ntlm authentication we can discard this setting, and we can also mention if the share should be visible by particular client, then we can add username at the rate client's hostname, and only that client will be able to view the share to when we access the share. So for now we will set it as per our current users. I have a local user named Purva1. For now I just want the settings to be seen for Purva1 user, share to be visible to Purva1 user and not other users, so we will not add any groups in this section. Now as per the requirement we can add any groups which we have configured on our server. Now we need to create those share paths, opt share, share and opt accounts. Uh, Now for ntlmLocal authentication, as per mentioned in the docs, we have to run the MoSMB password binary, which will map our local Linux user as a MoSMB user. Now this MoSMB user is further used to access the share. This binary is present at user bin location, and we can check the usage of it as follows. -h, and we'll get to know what all options we have with this binary, that is to how to add a user, how to delete an existing user, how to update a password for any user, and how to list the current configured MoSMB users. So currently we do not have any configured users for MoSMB. We can add it with -a option, and this user which we are adding must be a local Linux user. If it is not a local Linux user, we won't be able to add it as a MoSMB user. We will mention the password as 123, confirm the password as 123, and now if we list the existing MoSMB users, we will get to see that Purva1 user is added to the files. This file is created at the location etc MoSMB in the file MoSMB u.dat file. Now this is basic ntlmLocal authentication. Now if we want to go and select the Posix Acls, we'll just go to the Posix Acl settings. Now Posix Acl for ntlm authentication, ntlmLocal authentication, all we have to do is change the ownership of the share path and apply the our MoSMB users ownership to the share path. two different shares, and then we will be able to view the test properties accordingly. So we'll just change the ownership. So we'll just currently we have root ownership for our share path and our accounts, share 1 and share 2 path. So we'll change the both the shares ownership. Purva 1 and Purva 1 group. Share similar for OPT accounts, which is our share 2. Now for demo purpose, we will add another user. Say root. And we'll give the password to it. We'll just check if this user is added. Now we have two MoSMB users, Purva1 and root. Now we have this share properties with Purva1 user listed on our shares. So owner and the group of these shares are Purva1. So root user won't be able to read write perform the write and execute operations on the shares which we have exported as MoSMB shares. Now, as per the licensing configuration, MoSMB comes with the trial licenses for 30 days, and by default it starts the online activation for the trial license. So if you have the connection to the ntlmLocal website, then we won't need to configure the license manually or create a trial request manually. So currently this machine has a online connection, network connection outside to the ntlmLocal website. So online activation will be done when we start the MoSMB service. I'll start the MoSMB service as MoSMB start command. Sudo, you need to use sudo as this is not a sudo user. Just check the status. MoSMB service is running. And log locations we have mentioned in MoSMB JSON file as var log. So we'll have the logs here. And we can see that MoSMB server is now running in running state. IP address of this machine is 10.10.0.225. So we can access the MoSMB share with using this IP address when it is configured in ntlmLocal mode. So currently I have one Windows 2K19 machine on which I have logged in with the local user as Purva1. And if we access the share with the IP address 10.10.0.225, it will prompt us for the MoSMB login credentials. Now we have given the login credential as Purva1 and root. These two users are configured. So with Purva1, if I access the share, I will be able to list both the shares. And if we go into the properties of the share, in the security section, we'll be able to see that the owner of this group, owner of this share is Purva1 and has all read, write and execute access. And the group of this share is Purva1 again, and it has only read access and there is no write access, as similar to configured on the server side. So as I have accessed this with the Purva1 user, I should be able to create any files or folders in this. Now if we check from another client machine, when we access the share with IP and our a different user, which was root MoSMB user, this time the share 2 is not visible to me as UB settings are on. So UB settings were set for Purva1 user only, so that share is not enumerated in this case. Now if we go to the share 1 and if we try to create any files or folders, we'll get the error that is we do not have permissions to make any changes to this file, that this user does not have any permissions. So that's how ntlmLocal and Posix Acls work along with the UB. In next lecture, we'll see how to configure the Kerberos related settings and MoSMB settings as well as the server settings.